Valley Castle being in County Mayo, which takes up a pretty big portion of the northwest part of the country. And Valley Castle is actually a coastal village or town that, from my studio building, you can see the ocean, you can see the waves. So it was only about a 25-minute walk. And from there, if you walk up the coast another 40 minutes, you come to the cliffs, which you're talking heights of 700, 800, 900 feet. So a lot of very dynamic landscape. The geography is just quite something. And you can say that it was probably one of the things that brought me there, but there was something else that was even greater. And I think that, that was the challenge of taking on the landscape, because it's not a subject matter that I, gravitate to. I enjoy painting the still life. I enjoy painting the self-portrait, as I did many, many years ago. And those two subject matters are very still, and it's conducive to the way I approach my work, my subject matter, in that I want to know it as a whole. Meaning I like to have the object still so that I can see it in the daylight, at night, with artificial light, natural light. And, mixed in there, paintings come out with auras of identity, auras of mortality, timelessness. So here I am, throwing myself in the fire. How do I deal with this landscape that's so aggressive and change? And of course, I go over there with ideas, and you've thought about this. So I have my camera on one hand and my portable easel, thinking, okay, I can either paint it on location or I can photograph it and take digital images. But those two things are not necessarily, I don't care too much to do, because going out is just too many steps. I like being in the studio, going in and getting ready to work, which sort of goes with the idea of just the immediacy that I like with the still life or the self-portrait. So, and the other one, working from a photograph, is not something that I like either, because I feel like as an artist, as a painter, I enjoy responding to my subject at the present moment. So, sort of like in real time, as they would say now. So, a dilemma, like, what to do. And it ended up being a hybrid, where I was doing a lot of drawing, sketching from sight, as well as working from the digital images. So I took pictures. In one day, you can get rain, sunny, foggy. So you can get just a range of pictures just in one day of the same location. So as you see, all the paintings are from one point of view. And the studio building is at a level, because my studio was on the second floor, you can see sort of an aerial view of the town of Valley Castle. So yeah, that was one of the biggest challenges for me, is to turn to these two ways of working that really challenge the way I approach my subject. Now I'm working with digital images at home, Again, which was something I would have never done if I would have put myself not in that situation.
That's interesting, because I'm going through a similar kind of thing right now at this point, because I come from a similar background, landscape painting. Well,
Yeah.
actually, you weren't a plein air painter. We
Yeah.
both know a lot of people who do
Right.
that. But, so yeah, I was very struck by your sense of how do you capture this? This is new for you, and how do you approach it? So there's the freeze it digitally, or go out and have the experience. And of course, being in the landscape is something that informs your work.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to understand our response to place.
Right. It's something where I mean, when you're painting or drawing from life, you know, there's so much more that you're gathering because you're there.
Yeah.
The air, in this case, you know, it's a landscape, so you're gathering the air and
Yeah.
smell,
And
everything.
experience.
And, yeah, right. And you don't get that from an image. So
From a photo.
from a photo.
Except that the ones that you take, then you, and I ended up for the first time as well, working from photographs that I had taken, because, you know, you can't always kit yourself out to go out into the landscape and paint
Yeah.
a la prima. It doesn't always play out that the weather's gonna work out for you, so you still wanna say something about the landscape, and you're in your studio looking at digital images and processing memories. I think for me, this was an awful lot of trying to integrate my experience and trying to find different ways to express all the things I was gaining from being in the landscape,
Yeah.
besides just recording it, really more like processing it, yeah, through visual expression, which is not easy. We're inventing, I think every artist is inventing a language.
Exactly, yeah. And, yeah. I mean, it is, for me, it's, even though, you know, I work with the still life or the landscape or the self-portrait, it's always an investigation of your own forms.
Yeah.
You know, how you see something. And I think that's what drives me to paint something over and over again, where every subject becomes my motif, you know, because it's this greater dialogue that you want to build with that.
Does it become sort of like a placeholder or a symbol for a lot of ideas that you're investing in, a lot of emotion? I mean, for me, that's what it becomes. It's taking elements from the landscape and investing them with an awful lot that's hidden maybe to the viewer, but for me, it's a means of working through ideas and connection to place and inventing new languages to say those things. I feel like that is very much what's going on in this whole room, sort of investigation into speaking for myself and just who I am at this moment in this particular place. And I want to know, you know, I fell in love with Iceland the first time I went there. It's taken me several, still, I think, in a point where I'm still not quite sure that there's still more to find, there's more to mine. The more I go, the deeper I go, the more I discover about myself.
Yeah, that's true.
Can you guys talk about the lack of color in your work?
Yeah.
You're out there in the landscape, and it's a curious thing, and
Yeah.
there it is.
It's interesting
Well,
how
both of you.
cannot
Yeah.
with us.
Well, my palette is actually using primary colors, so.
Oh, okay, so you just knock them out that way. You knock
Yeah.
out the color.
Right, it's, so I have control over the temperature of those grays that I'm making. But I think that for me, the gray, or these very muted colors, they're connected a lot to my practice of doing a lot of drawing. I go to museums a lot, and I do observational drawings of paintings, and part of this sort of project, if you want to call it, I've been studying paintings of Cezanne, his specifically these paintings that he did of his mountain, the Mont Saint-Victoire. He did a series between 1900 and 1906 that are really intense, and they feel much different than many of the previous paintings that he did of the mountain. But for example, when I go to museums, I'm drawing, and as I'm drawing, I'm translating those colors into value. And so I think that is part of responding to that.
Do you think it also allows you to focus, like taking strong color out of the mix allows you to focus on some other responses to the landscape, so that you can really zoom in on some other issues or other things you're responding to?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes, because it's
Simplified, yeah, it's 100%. Going back to simplify, going back to black and white for me was a way to cope with how do I get what's in here and all this emotion and experience. And to me, the color was just too many variables. I just couldn't focus my intention with all those variables. So immediately I saw color had to go. Or maybe blue, blue and white. It's sort of the same thing,
Yeah.
just simplifying.
Yeah, it's, you're mixing with
It's
green.
an old
and
process.
You don't have to go from green to red or red to yellow. It's a quicker kind of transition. I mean, I think historically, artists have tried to close that gap because, drawing is very immediate, as anyone here is visually, does visual work. It's immediate, so your ideas are more direct, fresh, to the point.
Yeah, and I think for me, I came to drawing during this last residency because I had the space and time to really experiment with something new. And these are works on a scale and using materials that I've never really used before. So when you're given a month of uninterrupted time, it's kind of interesting to start on something that you've never really done before and see where it goes within that focused energy. And I've been very pleased with what I've been able to, the new ground I've been able to push just by having that focused amount of time. It's such a gift to be able to have that during the year. And I think that's when you really make some big personal discoveries.
Yes, you do. Your dialogue just gets big. I had the chance to be in the studio basically from 10 in the morning till 10:30 at night. Of course, you're off something for lunch and dinner, but
There's always this little thing
Constantly
going on,
on.
and I don't know how it is for you, or your experience at Ballinland, but did you have a lot of solitary time and a lot of really quiet time? That's exactly why I go to the remotest places that I can find, to have that solitude, to have that quiet. It doesn't exist in our daily lives.
the interesting thing is that when you get to Ireland, even in that area, part of the country, which, I was reading a few books there, and Brand van Velde, the Dutch painter, Samuel Beckett, and many other writers would actually flock to that region because it is solitary, but it is, and there's nothing out. I could walk out and you could not, often you don't see anyone.
It's wonderful.
And and it's
It's unadulterated joy.
quiet, eerie, and there's something, you understand why, Ireland comes out with many great writers.
Yeah. A lot of silence in which to reflect and kind of go deeper. I just wanted to mention real quick the two different approaches that I've been following to sort of get deeper into Iceland and understanding my attraction to the place. And so I have this, the prints with words, and that's one way for me to reflect on what I receive from the material culture of the place, specifically the manuscripts that I was looking at. At my job, I work with rare books and printed materials, so I'm very attuned to the materiality of those objects and what they convey. So I have a sensitivity to it, and so when I went to Iceland, I started investigating what they have, what their culture has valued and collected since, the year 1000 practically. So that was for me one way in to understanding something deeper about Icelandic place and Icelandic culture.
When you were there investigating what they found valuable and the culture collected, what was it?
The words, quite literally, words that had been spoken and told and retold, and then
that's interesting.
then written, and then rewritten, and then rewritten again, and finally printed. But no, it's the words, and for them, they have a huge sense of protecting the heritage that is in their language, so it's very pure from Old Norse. They don't allow a lot of borrowed words into the language. So you can, if I could read Icelandic, which I can't, if I could, which someday I might, you could still understand the written word that these words that were written in the year 1000 are still intelligible to people who read Icelandic. Even the script is intelligible. So it's quite accessible, and I find that whole thing very fascinating. So these three pieces, I am talking to you, silence is the medium of transmission, and my message is encoded, are sort of this encapsulated concept of what it is that I am looking for and what it is that I receive from Icelandic place. And it touches very obliquely on the manuscripts themselves, but really it's more about sort of accessing culture through the materiality of these objects. And the importance of silence as being the place from which you can really receive something from the land.
Mm-hmm.
I am talking to you, this refers to, I'm a visual artist, so I'm trying to create a visual language that will express and communicate and transmit. So that's my thinking on those, and the drawings really are more my imagined. It starts to address how I feel when I'm there and how I feel when I think about the things in Iceland that I haven't seen, and maybe the things that I'll never see, but that are still very vivid in my imagination. The absolute wilderness, the danger of the wilderness, the inaccessibility of the wilderness. To me, these all became sort of metaphors for my own interior, and that's really ultimately what, for me, the function of art is, to help me understand more about myself and my response to the world, to the here and now, and also to the, how I fit in the timeline. Things happened in the past, all these lives lived, all these lives lost, and we will go that way ourselves.
Yeah.
And so what is it that we leave behind, and what does those things say about us? What do they say about our time on Earth right now? So those are the sort of bigger questions that I'm trying to get at through my visual art.
I see a little nod to technology and to the connection to the outside world, which is probably pretty important up there.
Yeah, that's right, the transmitters, the receivers, the antennas.
So the places in Iceland that are really dependent upon this communication to the outside world, and is that like a major part of the landscape? Are there radio towers?
Not everywhere. Yeah, there are some places that are really not connected. And this is the beauty beauty of this is true wilderness. And it's so easy to find
Wow.
a place where there are no cell towers. There's no cell reception. These guys just got back from there. I mean, it is truly a huge wilderness. But this was from Reykjavik, and yeah, lots of transmission going on there.
Sounds more remote than where I was.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it probably is. It is, that center of Iceland is the largest wilderness in Europe.
Wow.
Still remaining. It's at risk. They're working hard to try to protect it and keep it inaccessible. I mean, except maybe certain areas where you can go through, but yeah, we'll see. They're working on it.
And where was your studio? Was it in Reykjavik or was it in the wilderness?
My first month I was in Reykjavik, and that's really kind of was the view from my window out across the water and to some distant lighthouses. And then the drawings I did when I was up north, and I was alone in a studio. It was in a little town, but I was doing a lot of walking. So I would go back into the studio with my photos or my sketches from the field and start working on some drawings there.
So it's a dangerous place.
It is a dangerous place. But so is Philadelphia.
Different danger.
It's just a different danger. Choose your poison.
But Roger, your solitude was tempered by the presence of your family, and, right, and you were somewhat in community.
Yes, there was that aspect, which is good. One of the